Well, welcome back to session 3 of our series on the crowns of old age. In this session, I want us to focus our attention on the crown of spiritual rest in old age. It's very early in the morning here in Fresno, and I was up very early, and I love physical rest. I don't get a lot of it. I like many of you who are my age at 70 and so forth. I tend to I sleep in 2-hour blocks, and I wake up and then I go back to sleep and so forth. And I love naps when I can get them. I love my pillow when I can use it properly, all right? But I'm not talking about the physical rest that we need as we grow older. I'm talking about the crown of spiritual rest in old age. For many seniors, those that are heading on the road to be seniors, that can be a most fear-prone road of life. From the time we reach middle age and beyond, a special list of fears can creep in. In fact, what I did was read a number of books on aging, and here's what the list is. As we grow older, we have an increased fear of loneliness. It's not that we are lonely, but we fear we might be. Parents and family members and spouses and friends begin to die off. And it becomes increasingly more difficult to build relationships. That's why the church has to focus on connecting older people with each other any way they can, in visitation, in small groupings, and ministry gatherings and so forth, and picking them up if you have to, or visiting shut-ins. It is primary. But as we grow older, we also have an increased feeling of being unproductive. Our positions perhaps are being filled by younger people, and we move into retirement. I'm a pastor teacher, and I have a number of pastors, and they do a lot of the preaching now. I'm passing the baton to the next generation, and there are times when I kind of feel like, whoa, I've given up my platform, but the truth is I'm mentoring another generation. But there's that sense that can come in this if we're not careful. We also have an increased fear of rejection in a society that thinks that old age is a plague, And so our society, even our families or even our friends that view old age as a problem instead of an opportunity. We also have an increased fear of boredom. Retirement comes and time pressures are no longer an issue. And suddenly we have people kind of figure out, what do they do now? And then not everybody wants to garden. Not everybody wants to make wooden toys for their kids. They want to do something that they feel is more productive. We can also experience an increased fear of being dependent on others. And it is a fear. Many people will say in old age, as you know, in pastoral counseling, that they'd rather die because they don't want to be a burden to their children. They don't want to go into assisted living where somebody has to take them to the bathroom. Somebody has to feed them. Somebody, God forbid, has to change their diaper. There is a great fear of that, being dependent on others. And many would say, I'd rather just go home to be with Jesus. And we have to walk them through that too. But also as we grow older, many of us have an increased fear of being unattractive. Let's face it, we don't really get better looking as we get older. Our bodies go through a natural aging. While we're living in a world that emphasizes beauty and strength, we're not so beautiful anymore. And we're not so strong. And according to many surveys, the biggest fear that people have when they grow older is an increased fear of being the victim of crime. A fear of being robbed, of being mugged, of being duped into a financial fraud, of being taken advantage of. And that's why we in ministry have to surround those older people with not just physical protection, not even just feeding programs or ministries that way, but also to provide them legal protection. And we oftentimes will go to our seniors and caution them and give them training on how to watch for scams on the phones, for example. But we have to start with God's answers. I'm reminded of Psalm 37, and I love the fact that it's an old man's psalm. King David, the son of Solomon, was an old man when he wrote Psalm 37. And in Psalms 37, verse 7, he says, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. I love Psalm 37, and I want to encourage you to read it over and over and over and underline all the verbs. Just underline the verbs. Trust and wait and, depend on him. And read it so many times. And, there's an old saying that the longest journey in the world is from our head to our heart. And the older we get, the more we need Psalm 37. Recently, I went to my favorite hardware store and I bought my wife a foldable hand truck so she could tote her heavy loads when I'm not around, or even when I am around, because I can't lift them all anymore either. But I'm reminded of Matthew 11:28, so often quoted, so rarely lived. When Jesus said to all of us, including older people, come unto me, all you who that labor and are heavy laden, who are burdened with trials, with anxieties, with fears. What did he say? I'll give you rest. That time-honored passage brings so much comfort to all ages, especially as we grow older, that Jesus will carry our load all the days of our lives if we have a personal relationship to him. It starts there, folks. It doesn't start with a seniors program. It doesn't start with a feeding program or a shut-in program or a visitation program. It starts with people knowing what it means to have a personal, intimate relationship to the Lord Jesus Christ so that they can come to him. 1 Peter says that we cast all of our cares upon him. Sadly, what we do with that is that we are so prone to do what most do, which is to give God a time limit. To say, God, I give you my troubles, and now you have 10 seconds. Handle it. And then we give God our 10 seconds, and then we say, look, you didn't do anything. Now it's my turn. That's not what this says. That we cast all of our cares upon him, and we leave them there at the foot of the cross. That's what I want for us. So I want us to take some time this week to be honest with ourselves, to ask ourselves what we're most afraid of, whether presently in our older age or coming up in future years. Do I fear loneliness or being unproductive? Fear rejection? Fear boredom? A fear of being dependent on others? A fear of being unattractive? A fear of being victim of a crime? And maybe one of the bigger fears, and I admit I have that, is a fear of losing my abilities to remember my family, to remember the scriptures. Dementia, Alzheimer's, it's a great fear. Even then, we cast it on the Lord.